Hello, friends. This is Hank, your pajama scholar. And while there are many things to speak about, or speak of, or speak on, or talk about, one day someone will explain the English language. But in the interim, until language is fully understood and thoroughly examined, I suppose we'll reflect a moment on truth. And this is to define truth and abuse of truth, or more on discernment, metacognition, and the practical ways in which we can examine what is true and what is not true, even though the textbook definition is true or a fact. And already I'm ahead of myself. That's what makes these lectures so boring. So what I'll attempt to do is distill something, an old lesson. I'm going to try and distill it as quickly as possible and still enjoy myself and get drunk as hell, if possible. And we're going to talk a little bit about a school of enchantment, mesmerism, illusion, and transmutation. Now, there's certain arts that were forbidden. And I want to talk about black magic, and not in a racial sense. Talking about black as in neither black nor white. I'm talking about something that's going to be beneath what is seen. And I'm talking about to spell via the use of words. So I'm talking about essentially what is a school of enchantment, but it's also distracting. And I have all the time in the world. I've got all the time. I can sit and wait. I'm patient. I've got nothing better to do. Take all the time you need. In fact, I'm bored teaching the class. I'm fucking waiting on you. If you don't mind, take your time by all fucking means. I do this for my own health. I do this for my own fucking edification. It's a great joy to me to teach you. So by all means, take your fucking time and I'll wait on you. Let me know when you're ready. Not ready yet? Okay. Now, we're going to talk about the woeful abuse of words. So, anybody that wanted to fuck off, I'm glad you're fucking gone. Peace, bitch. We're going to talk about the woeful abuse of words today. Fucker. All right. The woeful abuse of words is what we are speaking on today. All right. Now, advantages, the natural imperfection of language. Or advantages, the natural imperfection of language. And what I mean by this is that anything that you do or say to reflect the truth of the matter of a thing is impossible, or not necessarily impossible, but definitely difficult to reflect with certainty purely with language or speech or writing or painting or sculpting. There, artistically or with any expression that you have in the wholeness of your heart, there will be nothing perfect. But there are, let's say, even if you are dedicated wholly, fully to the truth, it would take a lifetime and maybe more, definitely more, many lifetimes. I'm not even sure it's possible to reflect what is true. But there are lots of ways to advantage the natural imperfection of language. So what you're doing is you're essentially woefully abusing words. So while this is about technicality, this is about the things that transcend money, things that transcend speech, things that transcend things that you can sense, experience, partially comprehend, but could never reflect. in totality in a way that anybody else is going to ever fully and completely understand. Because the individual experience is so uniquely individual, but there are lots of ways to abuse words. And I'm talking about the woeful abuse of words. Now, this mostly is coming from John Locke, trying to give you a little Cliff Notes version here on concerning human understanding, and look to chapter 10 if you want to get a more expressive lesson. But back in those days, they had plenty of time to write and plenty of time to think and to think about thinking. So I'm trying to distill this down. Now, when you're challenged to decree the essence of a thing, there is some obscurity and confusion hard to avoid in the use of words. I hope that's clear. Now, I can be more clear, because this is what my note would be. The willful fault and neglect to render communication less clear and distinct than they naturally need to be. It is a method of obfuscation. And, you could look at, if you're to actually go and get the book and read the chapter, it will say, novum organum, or the idolaphori, or of the idolaphori. What do I'm not a scholar. Well, a pajama scholar, a lazy pajama scholar. So, of course, Latin is definitely rusty. Okay. Now, the second point of the abuse of words, or on the abuse of words, the woeful abuse of words, the second trick that you can use is words employed without any ideas or any clear ideas. So, words without purpose or clear distinction, or signs without anything signified. And essentially in this, there are two methods, but I'm going to roll 3 into 2 and carry it out as if it was only one thing. Method 1. An introduction, or words without clear ideas, as the fundamental annex, and that is going to be a very important word for you to understand now going forward into this conversation. Annex. I want you to know what that means and understand it, comprehend it, fully grasp what it is to annex. For origination. So I'm going to repeat that now that I've made it very clear what you should understand about this. Introduction, or words without clear ideas, as the fundamental annex for origination. And this applies to words found in their first original and approved use, do not stand for any clear or distinct idea. So basically that is to essentially annex, hijack, absorb, steal, in this one particular explanation that I'm giving. Now, don't use the internet. If you are capable of doing so, find a book, an old one, and get a definition from that book of annex. And then tell me. I want to know if I'm being clear in my use of the word annex, in the way that I have proposed today that it be used. All right, I'm going to move on a little bit further. The utility of ambiguity, or the execution of words without the clear idea. Annex. Who and why would use this method of the woeful abuse of words? And I'll tell you exactly who. Sects of philosophy, sects of religion, and I'm not talking about like sex. I'm talking about sex, like you could say, since the topic of the day is biology, you could say cells, groups, concentrations of individuals. So, see, there's different ways to describe essentially the same thing, so I'm trying to describe it to you in different ways so you have a comprehension of what I'm saying, because what I could say potentially would be misleading. Sex. Of philosophy, religion, and politic. And this is not to say that philosophy is not a real thing. Philosophy is a very real thing. Religion is a very real thing. God is a very real thing. Politic is also real. Okay? It is the distortion of these elements. It is to take these things that are essentially truth-seeking elements, because they must be. And I'll boil that down for you even a little bit further, but first we'll start with politics. Take a man and drop him in the woods by himself, and there he must survive. And here in the woods alone, he can only survive one way, and that's with the truth. Any distortion of that truth, any misunderstanding about what the truth is, and it inevitably leads to his demise, because, well, if that's the wrong berry to eat, and you eat it, you die. Now, take a second person, man, woman, whatever, I'm going to use the personal pronoun man, male, whatever, him, to describe whatever the fuck I want to, all right? So you're going to have to get rid of all your other personal pronouns, because as I'm going to describe it, it is always going to be, or not necessarily always, but for the most part, it will be him. That is the personal pronoun that I will prefer and use. So you take a second man and you put him in the woods. And now the two together must survive. And there can be no deceit between the two of them, because if one man represents that he knows that this berry is safe to eat, and it is not, or he is not absolutely sure of it, that he has not eaten it on many occasions, then the other man will die, or he will die, and two together is stronger than one, and this is the basis of society. It's based on truth. Otherwise, you have societal breakdowns, because if you misrepresent a thing, someone dies. Now, people are always going to die. That's just a fucking fact. But in the wilderness, when survival is critical, trust is a very important element. This is to politics. It's not one man grasping his dominion over his understanding of this particular berry, whether or not it can or cannot be eaten. That knowledge in and of itself is of no power at all. He hoards it if he wants to, but it accomplishes nothing. Even if you relay with perfect precision what that berry, if you eat it, will or will not do, it may not be understood, and people will still die. So one man in the wilderness is confronted with one thing specifically that he has to answer to, and that is the truth, and that is to God. And when you introduce the second man into that same environment, he must be truthful in interacting with that other man, or both their lives are at risk. Because there is no dominion among two. What do they say? Two's company, three's a crowd. I believe that more people that are dedicated to truth, to consciously and actively relay the best to their ability, the truth of a situation, the better off we will all be in a challenging time in which we may have forgotten, I have not forgotten, but some people have forgotten, that we are always in a challenge against nature. I promise you this, from the day that you were born on this plane, it's trying to kill you. You are going to die. It's going to kill you all on its own. You don't need another man to kill you. You're going to die all on your own. It's that cooperation that might prevent your death. See, the purpose of the exercise of being alive in cooperation is to delay the inevitable, and that's death. We're trying, and the best way to do that is to be truthful. And as I have already stated, it's difficult, even at your very best, to relay what is the truth. You could be confused. You may misunderstand what you can ingest. Maybe somebody else cannot ingest. Maybe that berry is more nourishing for you on one specific day. Maybe if you pick it too early, it won't fruit again, and then everyone dies because the bush doesn't fruit anymore. There are nuances to the thing that you maybe only partially have an understanding of. Even if you are to relay it as truthfully as you possibly can, you're still probably somewhere along the way going to be incorrect or wrong. And it's going to get fucked up. It's just a fact. So, we're going to go on about, now that I've explained, perhaps some element of truth, we're also going to talk about the woeful abuse of words. I'm going to try and bring it back to this initial piece. Well, I'm not done with religion. I listed 3 things. I'm going to go back. I started with politics. Now I'm going to go to religion. I'm going to go to religion is in where a man claims to speak for God. Well, good luck with that. People are confused about how difficult it can be to be in prayer all day long. They said that somebody that is not spiritually aware would go, you're sitting there doing nothing. You haven't produced anything. You haven't lifted anything. You haven't gone anywhere. You're sitting there in prayer and in meditation. It's difficult. So you will have people that will woefully abuse words to claim dominion over what does not belong to them. God is a piece of us all. God exists. God is real. Religion, if it is pure, if it is maintained in the Spirit, in the Holy Spirit, for me, I am a Christian. For me, Christ has been the way and is the way for me. It doesn't discount what your spiritual path might be. I will not inflict upon you what my spiritual path has been and will be, and what my beliefs are and know to be truthful. Christ to me brings a certain understanding that I love. And it's not even a complete understanding. It's just an understanding that I love and I'm attracted to. So I will walk with Christ. And even to the best of my abilities, I'll be imperfect in that. So that's why I am grateful and appreciative of Jesus Christ. That's why I don't forget the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. That's why that's very important to me. And what significance you place on it, that's up to you. But to go through life on your own, all alone, spiritually, without Christ to lean on, I don't know how you would do it, and I don't know why you would want to. But I do know that there are people out there that would convolute or woefully abuse words in order to commandeer belief, in order to commandeer faith, in order to confuse or obfuscate, and to use to their advantage the natural imperfection of language. Because what was written can be interpreted in many ways. So we'll move back one more piece to philosophy, and it's the same as religion and politics, and I'm not going to have to reiterate because I think I've made it fairly clear. Now, to affect something singular, and this is to use the utility or to introduce words without clear ideas as the fundamental annex for origination. And the purpose of this particular, I won't go so far as to call it a lie or misrepresentation, because it's much more than that. If I was to call it a lie or misrepresentation, I wouldn't fully be describing it to you, but you in your heart should be able to discern. But the goal of this would be to affect something singular, aka, which is an abbreviation for also known as, achieve a goal or purpose by avoiding the natural common apprehension. So if you're fearful or there's something in your heart that is true, it's essentially to misappropriate these terms to lead you into danger by making you comfortable with what you naturally should be uncomfortable with. 2, or B, to support strange opinions. So you will see the twisted use of language in order to support strange opinions. Or C, it is to cover weakness within their own hypothesis. That's another reason to twist language. Or the woeful abuse of words, again, chapter 10 of Concerning Human Understanding, Locke. Now, when examined, these words without clear annex of idea or signs without anything signified are justly dismissed as insignificant terms. So I'm just going to sit and bullshit you for a minute or two, and you'll pull out what's important. Now, method 2, and this is factually incorrect if you actually reference the text, but this is how I take my notes, and I'm sharing with you my perception. To take a word, first clearly annexed to an idea, afterward used without distinct meaning. What the fuck does that mean? To affix words of great or very important ideas such as wisdom, glory, grace, honor, without proof of understanding. Rather, to recite the word without knowing what the word personally means under confrontation, and that is to be at a stand and know the answer with proof. So, I can say a word like wisdom. Does that mean I have it? When I go and look up the definition of wisdom, does it give me an understanding enough to be wise? When I speak of glory, and I look up the word glory, is that definition enough to describe what glory is? Can it be defended? Can you speak enough on glory to defend it? Grace. Do you have enough grace? Can you look up the definition of grace? Read it, recite it. But do you understand what grace is? To be beaten and then to be at the full mercy and perhaps the hand is stayed, that's grace. Or maybe the grace of God when you observe things that are beautiful. When you are within the Holy Spirit and you sense the things that are real, is that grace? Is it grace to walk quietly? Is it grace to be gracious, to be thankful in all the things? A word and the definition of grace will show you some things, and to honor, to the point of honor. Can you stand and defend it? That is something that you can read in a book. You can find out what the definition is, but you will not know it, and you cannot defend it unless you live it and are it. So I'll move on a little bit further. To pronounce a word by sound with the tongue and not determined, or not by the determined idea expressed by the Spirit. So this is what I just defend in grace and in honor. I can pronounce those words, but the idea must be expressed through the Spirit. It is an understanding that it's not something that the mind has or the body can reflect, but it requires both the body and the mind to reflect them. But it is held in the Spirit. That is where you defend it. You earn it with the mind, you earn it with your body, and you keep it in your spirit. Now, to learn the name before understanding the idea to which the name belongs. And this is a simple misappropriation often. This is to use jargon. This is to use something that sounds correct but is really unintelligible. It's empty. It's to say many things and say nothing all at once. It's empty. You know the truth when you hear it. So I could misappropriate a bunch of jargon and a whole bunch of different sounds. I could say cardiovascular system, the pulsing of the cardiovascular system, or I could say the beating of the heart. To you, and it all depends. I mean, by definition, that essentially be the same thing, but in spirit, they could be very different. Natural matters are and must be much more considered than arbitrary collections of ideas, not regularly and permanently united in nature, without consideration for the fixed meaning. Moral matters of no settled notion. I'm not drinking nearly enough for philosophy. And this is why I only prepare a couple of points, because it takes a lot longer to... I laugh too. Thank you. but it takes a long time to explain a couple of points, and that's why I only prepare a few, even those are a whole lot more. And when you go and read philosophy, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just like a dumping of words. Because specificity is important in philosophy. Well, let me boil all that shit that I just said before I got off topic down to one word. If you need the replay, go back to the replay, but I'm going to boil it down to one word for you. Hypocrisy. Point 4. It's an unsteady application or inconsistency. Or not inconsistency, I think it's written as inconstant. Inconstant. I can't speak the word, I can read it. I can hear it in my mind. My tongue is dumb, like a finger with 5 thumbs, or a hand with 5 thumbs. That's the Wu-Tang Clan. Triumph. To simplify, to take a character, such as a number, which stands sometimes for 1, sometimes for a collection of units, another collection of units. So, 3, sometimes actually, representing 3. Or standing for 3, sometimes for 4, sometimes for 8, 7, or 9, as long as the application served advantage. And that's to cheat the truth in business, account, or arguing in learned contests. So, when you look up a textbook definition, you can apply, sometimes the textbook definition of a word has multiple meanings. And if you apply in your argument this meaning in what you perceive to be a witty way, and it's not at all, it's a fucking misrepresentation. To take the definition and apply it however you choose to, because it is technically correct in whatever that you're trying to achieve. It's to bend the definition to your will instead of to the truth. It is not wit to substitute multiple meanings to dishonestly represent truth. Now, can we go on to point 5, 6, and 7? I think you've had enough, and so have I, but not enough to drink. Maybe I'll drink a little bit more and return to the topic later, but I'll give you a couple of hints. Just titles. Number 5, affected obscurity. Number 6, victory by logic, dispute, or debate. And I am talking about the woeful abusive language or the woeful abusive words. And 7, to be subtle. Oh, and 8, propagation to confound established instruments of communication. So, there are a few more places that we can reach. There are a few more things to do, a few more ways to go. But I got better shit to do. Well, no. Let me try and be honest. I'm a lazy drunk, a pajama scholar that is going to just sit around and pontificate and think, and I do so very best when I'm drinking, and I'm not nearly drunk enough for this shit. So, it's been Hank, your pajama scholar. Catch you on the flip side.